Hi everyone, this is uh, ATT UK's UAE VAT Diploma, which is a prerequisite for FTA's Federal Tax Authority's approved tax agent program, and we are on the 20th chapter of this diploma program, which addresses VAT group. So here it goes. The introduction. Two or more persons may apply to be treated as a tax group, which you can also call it VAT group for VAT purposes. VAT grouping means that the companies are treated as one taxable entity for VAT purpose. FTA has published a tax group user guide which explains in more detail how to apply for registration, amendments, and deregistration of such a VAT group. The FTA has also published a VAT guide on tax groups, which is VAT GGR 101. Now we'll look at the conditions of a VAT group. The following conditions must all be met to be eligible for VAT grouping. What are those conditions? Each person must have a place of residence in the UAE. Now, the concept of place of residence has two interpretations. One is called place of establishment, and the second one is called fixed establishment. So, place establishment is where the company is incorporated, for example, and fixed establishment is a fixed place of business usually. Both together form the expression called place of residence. Place of residence in UAE can take place either by way of having a place of establishment in the UAE or as a consequence of having a fixed establishment in the UAE. A business establishment is usually the uh, place where the business is legally established, in which key management decisions affecting the business are made. So that's the place of establishment, incorporation, usually registration. A fixed establishment is any permanent or regular location uh, apart from the place of establishment where a person carries out their business and has adequate human and technological resources to facilitate the supply or acquisition of goods or services. So, the adequate human and technological resources, that is an indication towards substance, economic substance, including the person's branches. So, fixed establishment includes the concept of the legal status of branch. A foreign owned subsidiary that has been established in the UAE can, under these criteria, qualify to be included in a VAT group. So, a branch of a foreign owned company can also qualify under the fixed establishment test if it has a branch in the UAE. So, uh, the each member must be carrying on a business, meaning the in order for an entity to be included in the VAT group, each member must be carrying on business. Legal person criteria: each member of a VAT group must be a legal person. They must be a company, government entity, similar. Natural person cannot create or join a tax group. That's a key point for us to remember. Tax group, VAT group, natural persons cannot become part of. The be persons must be related parties. Legal persons are regarded as related parties in instances such as persons acting in a partnership or having any of the following: voting interest in each of those legal persons of 50% or more. So, voting rights basically. Market value interest in each of those legal persons of 50% or more, uh, meaning the investment of share capital basically. Control of each of those legal persons by any other means. There can be other means through which one entity can control the other entity, through a management agreement, through other, appointment of board of directors, etc. Appointments to the board of directors. Each of the persons is a related party with a third person. That also is possible. They can be a common related party. Two or more persons shall be considered related parties if they are associated in economic, financial, and regulatory aspects. So, three criteria: economic, financial, regulatory, taking into account the following. Now, economic practices which shall include at least one of the following, like achieving a common commercial objective, one person's business benefiting another person's business, supplying of goods or services by different businesses to the same customers. So these could be economic uh, practices which could indicate a, that one person is a related party to the other person. So one criteria was economic practices. Another criteria could be financial practices, which should include at least one of the following. What are the financial support given by one person's business to another person's business? One person's business not being financially viable without the other person's business, or common financial interest in the proceeds. So these could be the criteria for financial practices. So related parties can become so related based on uh, economic, financial, or regulatory aspects. And the third one was regulatory. So regulatory practices, which will include one of the following: common management, common employees, whether or not jointly employed, common shareholders or economic ownership. So if you really look at that, this is the third category: regulatory practice that can make two parties related parties. In the C uh, part, one or more persons conducting business in a partnership shall control the other. So these are the different scenarios or modus operandi through which the following conditions must all be met to be eligible for VAT group. So VAT grouping conditions we have just read. So one condition, each person must have a place of residence. Second criteria was they should be related parties. And third thing is one or more persons conducting the business in partnership shall control the others. So there should be one party identified as the responsible party or the controlling party. If these conditions are met, then a VAT group can be formed. Allocation for group registry, application for group registration. A VAT group is not formed automatically. Naturally, the persons intending to form a VAT group will select one of its registered members to act as a representative member of this VAT group. An application must be made to the FTA by the representative member of the VAT group. So that's how it will happen. The representative member is going to make an application on behalf of other members to form the VAT group. FTA would make a decision regarding any application submitted for registration of two or more persons as a VAT group within the period of 20 business days, starting with the day on which it was received by the FTA. The day FTA receives the application for forming of a VAT group, countdown begins from that day, and that day is included as the first day, considered as the first day. After that, 19 more days. So within 20 days, FTA has to inform about the decision whether they are okay with allowing these entities to form a VAT group. Where a request to form a new VAT group is approved, the VAT group registration will be effective from the first day of the tax period following the tax period in which the application is received. That's one situation. Any other date as determined by FTA. Note that backdated VAT grouping is not permitted. So the default approach, the default method of the date that the VAT group will be registered and effective will be first day of the tax period following the tax period in which the application was received by FTA. Or alternatively, FTA can give a different date as well, but it will not be a back date. Certain examples are given. So there's an X LLC which owns 100% ALC and OS LLC and 80% of BLLC, and 60% of CLLC and 50% of DLLC. All companies except OS Inc. are UAE based. So just OS is not based out of UAE. Which companies can be included in a VAT group registration? So that was the question. So probably the answer should be given at the end itself, or but anyways, we can give the answer here as well, because this is the only company OS which does not have a place of residence in UAE. It has a place of residence outside the UAE. That is why this cannot be made part of the VAT group. Other than that, uh, all the companies can be made part of the VAT group. Now, impact of a group registration. So all VAT group members are treated as a single taxable person for VAT, and all members within the VAT group shall remain personally and jointly liable for any payable tax of the representative member. So that's that's the first consequence of forming a VAT group. All VAT group members are treated as single unit, single taxable unit for VAT purposes. All members within the within the VAT group shall remain personally and jointly liable for any payable tax of the representative member, that entity which we had positioned as the representative member. Uh, so all the entities will be jointly and severally responsible. All suppliers between members of the VAT group are outside the scope of VAT. This is probably the main effect of VAT group registration, and means that within the VAT group, supplies are disregarded, meaning that cash flow or absolute VAT costs that might otherwise be suffered by the business concerns are totally eliminated. So intercompany transactions between or amongst the members of VAT groups, they are out of the scope of VAT. Supplies to or from, including any imports or exports outside the VAT group, are treated as made by or to the representative member. So the company that we had positioned as the representative member, we'll think of this company as the one to whom supplies are made from a VAT perspective. Advantages of group registration. One of the most popular advantages that persons find with a group registration is that it offers simpler VAT accounting. Obviously, because now we're looking at the entire group as one fiscal entity, because there is only one VAT return for the whole VAT group, rather than each company completing its own individual VAT return. The advantage of this could, however, be questionable in cases where the companies are using other accounting systems. Yeah, so if there are multiple accounting systems, then consolidation and all of those things might create a little bit of a hassle. A VAT group registration will centralize the VAT affairs of the VAT group, and this can help with compliance because a greater central control will be needed over the VAT comings and goings of the whole VAT group. So, naturally, because of the VAT group registration, everything VAT related to that group is centralized. Major advantage of group registration, however, is that supplies between VAT group members are disregarded. Repetition. So we have discussed that. So where the VAT group member is a large exporter, where one VAT group member is a large exporter, and therefore maybe in a refund position, VAT grouping the company with other VAT group members which are in a tax payable position may improve the cash flow of the VAT group. Yeah, I mean, if there is a major exporter, exporters do what? Zero rated exports. So there is zero rating. So entire VAT, input VAT that they have incurred becomes refundable to them. But what about the other companies within the same VAT group who have payable, net payable, ta VAT to payable to the government? So what will happen? The refund position of the exporter and the payable position of the other sellers, they will offset, and the company will be in a much better cash flow position. What are the disadvantages of group registration? There is a requirement for only a single VAT return for the whole VAT group. The same time limit to submit that VAT return for the whole VAT group still applies, even though there are different companies providing the required information. So, uh, having one and the same deadline for multiple companies, because now they're one VAT group, could create some problems. It can be quite difficult to collect the information necessary to compile that single VAT return and complete it by the normal deadline. So yes, meeting the deadline can be a challenge. This can be a disadvantage for VAT groups, and they may potentially incur administrative penalties if returns are persistently late or erroneous even. The voluntary disclosure limit applies to the whole VAT group and not to each VAT group member. Another disadvantage is the personal and joint liability for VAT for the whole VAT group, personally and severally, jointly and severally responsible. There are also certain cash flow advantages that may be lost by registering under a VAT group registration. For example, if one person in the VAT group is in a refund position, for example, an exporter, then it may be in a refund position every VAT period. However, if included in a VAT group registration, this may be lost. Uh, if one member of the VAT group is a mixed supplier, has both taxable and exempt suppliers, the whole VAT group would become subject to the input tax apportionment requirements. So, yeah, in case there is a scenario where some exempt suppliers are also being made within the VAT group, then the apportionment will become questionable. So the apportionment of the input VAT will become a concern from the perspective of the entire VAT group. Refusal to allow a group registration. The FTA may refuse the application for registration as a VAT group. FTA may refuse the application for registration as a VAT group in any of the following cases. So, what are the cases in which the application may be denied? The persons do not meet the requirements for VAT group registration. Okay, the preconditions like the control, related party, place of residence, those things are not met. Uh, where there are serious grounds for believing that if the registration as a VAT group is permitted, it would enable tax evasion or significantly decrease tax revenues of the FTA or increase the administrative burden on the FTA. So, okay, so if that is the case, evasion or avoidance may be increased. That's also a place where FTA could decline the registration. Where any of the persons included in the application is not a legal person, where any of the persons is a government entity as specified in the VAT law and the other is not. Okay. There are, I think, there may be certain rare circumstances in which government entity can at least subsidiaries of government entities, but that's in the corporate tax law, so not relevant here. Where one of the persons is a charity as specified in the VAT law and the other is not. So if that is the case, one is a charity which is listed on the charities list approved by the UAE cabinet, but the other one is not, then the registration or the application for VAT group may be rejected. Changes to a VAT group. Okay. VAT group was formed. Now, after that, how do we change the VAT group, the composition of VAT group? So, answer is the representative member representative member, the main member, may apply for another person to join the VAT group, for a person to leave the VAT group, for a different person to become the representative member, or to deregister as a VAT group. So that these are the various powers or authorities of the representative member of the VAT. The representative member of a VAT group must notify the FTA if any member of the VAT group is no longer eligible to be part of the VAT group. So this representative member of the VAT group must notify the FTA, Federal Tax Authority, if any member of the VAT group is no longer eligible to be part of the VAT group within 20 business days of the ceasing to be eligible. Uh, So let's read this part again. The representative member of a VAT group must notify FTA if any member of the VAT group is no longer eligible to be part of the VAT group. There may be change in circumstances. The shareholding structure may have changed. The related party status may have changed, and because of that, now the one company may not be eligible to become to stay or remain as part of the VAT group. So this information within maximum 20 business days has to be informed by the representative member to the FTA. Must notify FTA within 20 business days of ceasing to be eligible. FTA may deregister a VAT group if the following conditions are met. So if the persons who are registered as a VAT group no longer meet the requirements for registration as a VAT group in accordance with the VAT law. If that happens, FTA can deregister a VAT group. If there is no longer an association based on economic, financial, and regulatory practices. If you remember this discussion earlier, so related party relationship can be or status usually is based on these three angles. It can be economic, financial, or regulatory. So if there is no such association, then no more related parties. And if no more related parties, then no more VAT group. That's why FTA could deregister the VAT group. And the third situation, if there are serious grounds for believing that if the registration as a VAT group is permitted to continue, it would enable tax evasion or would significantly decrease VAT revenue due to the FTA. If that's the case, FTA may deregister the VAT group. FTA would amend the composition of a VAT group in any of the following circumstances. So, not necessarily deregistering, but FTA might simply change the composition of the VAT group uh, in any of the following situations. A member shall be removed from a VAT group where the conditions in Article 15 of the regulation are met for that member, or where the member ceases to make taxable supplies. So if the member has simply stopped making taxable supplies, then FTA may remove that member from the VAT group. Uh, A person shall be added to a VAT group where the FTA establishes that a person's activities should be regarded as part of the business carried out by a VAT group in accordance with Article 10 of the VAT Executive Regulations. So, if there is one entity which fulfills the conditions of the, of the of becoming a member of a VAT group, then FTA may take the liberty and add it to the VAT group, uh, where it establishes that a person's activities should be regarded as part of the business carried out by the VAT group in accordance with the Article 10 of the VAT regulations, executive regulation. So, where the FTA decides to either deregister a VAT group or amend the registration, it shall give notification of that decision and its effective date to the representative member within 10 business days of making the decision. So, as soon as FTA decides within 10 business days, it shall give the notification uh, of this decision, and also it will identify the date on which this decision will be effective. This whole thing is Article 15 in the VAT Executive Regulations. Tax group formed by FTA. Now, there can be a situation where FTA forms a tax group for certain taxpayers. If two related parties with significant economic, financial, and organizational connections deliberately separate their business activities to avoid the full VAT implications, FTA may register them as a VAT group. Forcibly, FTA may form a VAT group on its own. Alternatively, they may choose to register them individually for VAT, or FTA might register them individually for VAT, as the case may be. The FTA may only register a person as a VAT group if the two following conditions are met. So that compulsory registration as a VAT group by FTA, when will it happen? If the following two conditions are met. What are those two conditions? The person's business includes making taxable supplies or importing concerned goods or concerned services. So these are basically taxable goods and taxable services which are being imported. So this word concern basically indicates importation. So importation of goods and services. Uh, so basically, the first condition is the person's business includes making taxable supplies or importing. Second, or if all the taxable supplies or imports of the concerned goods or concerned services of the business by the person carrying on the business would have exceeded the mandatory registration threshold. Uh, Now, by the way, uh, these are not alternative conditions. These are simultaneous conditions. Meaning, first condition is the entire business of the person should be taxable, like taxable supplies, importing or taxable supply. And not only this, but if the taxable supplies or imports of concerned goods or concerned services of the business by persons carrying on the business would have exceeded the mandatory threshold. So, uh, this could be done because of the artificial separation of business also. Some people might not want to register, or they, cleverly separate their businesses in a way so that they both remain below the threshold, VAT registration threshold. So if that is the case, FTA may look at two companies as one, and advise them or instruct them to form the VAT group. And see, for this purpose, they'll calculate the supplies made by both the companies. And if they exceed the mandatory registration threshold, they would consider this as VAT group. They may register as a VAT group. Here's another example. How many days after application for a VAT group registration does the FTA have to make a decision? How many days after application for a VAT group registration? So once a representative member files an application for VAT group registration, how much time does FTA have? The answer, if you remember, is 20 days. So, and that day on which the application is filed, that day is counted actually. So that we read somewhere up here, we 20 business days, including the day of application. So, anyways, so that's about it. The answers are given as well. That was chapter 20. So, inshallah, we will reconvene with chapter 21. Thank you.